Ever feel like you're running on fumes? Even with like all the modern conveniences we have, you'd think with our fancy coffee makers and comfy mattresses, we'd be, bursting with energy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? I mean, we're bombarded with all this advice, on like productivity hacks and sleep hacks and all that. And yet so many of us are just like chronically exhausted.
That's so true. And everyone I know is always complaining about being tired. So today we're like really diving deep into this whole science of fatigue. We're going to try to uncover why we feel so drained and more importantly, like what we can actually do about it. And we've got like a ton of research on this, everything from the latest in neuroscience to, get this, how our cavemen ancestors, dealt with tiredness.
That's right. That's right. Believe it or not, like the way our brains are wired, it hasn't quite, caught up with all the demands of modern life.
Interesting.
You could say like there's this evolutionary mismatch at play. You know what I mean?
Okay. Let's unpack that a bit. What do cavemen have to do with our 21st century fatigue?
Okay, so imagine, all right, you're Johnny Caveman, okay? It's like 300,000 years ago.
Okay.
Your biggest decisions of the day, right, might be whether to like hunt or gather berries.
Right.
Pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Now compare that to like your average day, right? Like in 2024.
Oh boy. Where do I even begin? My to-do list could like stretch to the moon.
Exactly. Choosing between like oat milk lattes or matcha, agonizing over like which email to answer first, trying to decide like what to watch on Netflix while I'm like scrolling through 5 other apps. We make an astounding number of decisions every single day. Researchers estimate it's around 35,000.
Wow, 35,000.
35,000. And all that decision making, it takes a toll on our brains,
So it's not just about like physically doing things. It's the mental gymnastics of constantly choosing.
Yeah.
Where's this down?
You got it. You got it. It's like, imagine your brain, right? Think of it like it's like a bustling city.
Yeah.
Okay. And every decision, every thought is like traffic flowing through the streets.
Okay, I can see that.
Now imagine that every car leaves behind a tiny little bit of trash.
Okay.
That trash is like glutamate. It's a neurotransmitter. It helps our brain cells communicate.
Glutamate. Okay, so that sounds like important.
It is. Glutamate is like essential for learning and memory. But when we're constantly, like making decisions all day long, it's like that trash is piling up in our brain city, clogging those neural pathways, and it makes it harder for everything to like run smoothly. This buildup of glutamate, it's a major contributor to what we experience as decision fatigue.
Wow, that brain city analogy really paints a picture.
Yeah.
So even if I'm just like vegging on the couch, scrolling through social media, my brain could be experiencing like rush hour traffic jams because of all the like micro decisions I'm making.
Precisely. And that's why, we can feel mentally drained even when we haven't like physically exerted ourselves.
Oh, wow.
Our poor caveman brains simply weren't designed for this nonstop decision-making marathon, They were meant to like make a few big decisions a day,
Okay, this is a serious aha moment. Yeah. So what can we do about it? I mean, I can't exactly go back to like hunting and gathering for my supper, although maybe like less takeout and more meal prepping would simplify things.
You're onto something.
Yeah.
You're onto something. Remember like those siestas that are common in, some cultures. Turns out they're not just about laziness, Taking a midday nap, even a short one, it can actually help. It can help clear out some of that glutamate buildup and kind of like reset our brain city for the rest of the day.
Hold on. Are you telling me those afternoon naps are like hitting like the refresh button on my brain?
They can be.
Sign me up.
Yeah. It might sound a little counterintuitive, in our always-on society, but studies show that like regular siestas, they can boost our cognitive function. And they can even have positive effects on our physical health.
Okay, I am so on board with this whole siesta idea now. But I have to admit, like squeezing in a full-on nap every day, that's not exactly realistic for my schedule.
Right.
Are there other ways to kind of combat this glutamate overload? Maybe some quicker fixes. I feel like we could like all use a little like brain refresh sometimes.
Right.
But short of like, building a siesta into my day, how can we give our overworked brains a break?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to just being, mindful of our mental load, right? Like, are there decisions, that we make each day kind of like on autopilot that we could, streamline or maybe like eliminate altogether?
Oh, absolutely. I am like the queen of like agonizing over what to wear every morning. Maybe
Right.
like planning my outfits, for the week on Sunday evening. That would be a game changer.
Exactly. Exactly. And what about like those evenings when you're already like mentally spent and you're staring blankly into the fridge trying to figure out what to make for dinner.
Who don't even get me started on the what's for dinner dilemma. It's like all my like decision-making energy has like it evaporated by that point.
It's the worst, right?
It's the worst.
Meal planning is like such a fantastic way to just like lighten that mental load, Just spending like a little bit of time each week, like mapping out your meals, It eliminates those last minute decisions when you're already like running on fumes.
Okay, I'm definitely sensing a theme here, making those choices when our brains are fresh.
Yes.
Not when we're like already fried.
Exactly.
So streamlining decisions, checking that off the list. What else can we do to kind of give our brains a break?
Well, there's another like big piece of the fatigue puzzle we gotta address.
Okay.
Caffeine. You've heard of it, right?
Caffeine? Who hasn't? But seriously, it's like this double-edged sword, It gives me this like boost and then I just crash even harder than ever.
Right.
What's the deal with that?
It all comes down to another chemical messenger in our brain.
Okay.
Adenosine.
Okay. Adenosine. Is that good? Is that bad? Help me out here.
Think of adenosine as like your brain's built-in like sleep signal, right?
Yeah.
It builds up, throughout the day as we're like using our brain power, like a little meter that's slowly creeping into the red zone.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So the more adenosine, the more our brain is like telling us to go to bed.
Yes. You got it. You got it. Our bodies are designed to like respond to that adenosine signal by winding down and getting some sleep.
Okay, but that's where caffeine like swoops in and complicates things. Right?
Precisely. Caffeine is like that friend, right? That shows up right when you're about to call it a night.
Oh, no.
And convinces you to stay out for just one more, right?
Yes.
It blocks adenosine, you see, from delivering its time for bed message. So we feel more alert, even though like our bodies are really craving that rest.
So caffeine is basically like hitting the snooze button.
Yes.
On our like internal sleep alarm.
Exactly.
No wonder we like end up crashing later on.
Yeah.
It's like our brain is saying, remember all that sleep you thought you didn't need? Yeah, you owe me now.
That's a great way to put it. We've essentially like tricked our brains into thinking, that we don't need as much sleep as we actually do.
Wow.
And that brings us to that familiar afternoon slump.
Yeah.
Even if we've had like a decent night's sleep,
right,
we can hit a wall in the afternoon when all that built up adenosine finally gets its say.
This is all starting to make so much sense.
Yeah.
So what's like the best way to kind of navigate this caffeine conundrum? Asking for a friend who may or may not be completely reliant on her morning coffee.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to like give up caffeine entirely.
Okay.
It does have its benefits,
right?
But there are definitely ways to use it more strategically.
Right.
Have you ever heard of a coffee nap?
A coffee nap. Is that like drinking coffee and then immediately taking a nap?
Yes.
It sounds so counterintuitive. Like it would just make me like more wired.
You'd be surprised. It's all about timing.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about like napping helping to clear out that glutamate buildup? Well, if you have a coffee, then take a short nap. We're talking like, 15, 20 minutes max, something amazing happens.
You tell. I'm intrigued, but still a little skeptical.
By the time the caffeine kicks in, your brain has already like cleared out a good chunk of that adenosine, making the caffeine even more effective.
Wow.
It's like a 1-2 punch of energy.
Okay, I'll admit you've piqued my interest.
Yeah.
A coffee nap. Who knew? What else have you got up your sleeve in the way of like caffeine strategies? Okay, I'm adding coffee nap to my vocabulary for sure. But back to caffeine for a sec. Is there anything else we can tweak besides just trying these like power naps?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another like really simple strategy is to just like shift your coffee consumption to a little bit later in the morning, Let your body kind of clear out some of that that built up adenosine naturally before you hit it with the caffeine block, you know?
So resist that first thing in the morning cup.
Yeah.
I've experimented with that, and it does seem to make a difference.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah.
It's about, working with our natural rhythms,
Wow.
not just, overriding them with caffeine constantly.
Right. Right.
And speaking of natural rhythms, there's another piece of this whole, tiredness puzzle we haven't really talked about yet.
Okay.
Chronotypes.
Ah, yes. Chronotypes are like our sleep personality type, right? Like, are you a night owl, an early bird, or like somewhere in between? I've heard it's like actually hardwired into us.
That's right. That's right. It's not just a preference.
Right.
It's deeply ingrained in our biology. You know what I mean? Think of it like this. Your chronotype is like your internal timekeeper. It's a set of like instructions that are encoded in your DNA that tell your body, when you're naturally primed to sleep and wake.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But let's be real. Most of us don't really have the luxury of like living in perfect harmony with our chronotypes, work schedules, family obligations.
Yeah.
It's all a bit of a juggling act.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, modern life really kind of forces us into this one-size-fits-all approach to sleep that simply doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
And living out of sync with our chronotype, that can have a real impact on our energy levels.
So a night owl who's forced to wake up like before dawn is basically like living in a perpetual state of jet lag.
Exactly.
No wonder they're exhausted.
It's a great analogy, and it works both ways.
Okay.
An early bird who's pushing themselves to stay up late to meet deadlines or socialize, they might find that they're just not as sharp or productive as they could be. They're fighting their internal clock.
Like we're trying to fit like a square peg into a round hole and expecting our bodies to just like adapt when really it's messing with our sleep quality and leaving us like literally drained.
Exactly. And this brings us to like another like really crucial aspect of feeling energized, and that's sleep hygiene. And we've all heard of it, but I would argue that it's rarely like truly mastered.
Oh, absolutely. I am so guilty of like nodding along when I hear like, avoid screens before bed. But then I find myself like scrolling through social media with one hand while I'm like brushing my teeth with the other.
It's so easy to fall into those traps,
It is. Yeah.
But here's the thing, like even like seemingly small choices, in our like pre-sleep routine, they can have a huge impact on our sleep quality.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's talk like sleep hygiene hacks.
All right. Well, remember how we talked about adenosine and how it builds up throughout the day, right?
Yeah. It's like our internal sleep pressure gauge.
Exactly. Now imagine it's like, 8 p.m.
Yeah.
You're finally home after like a long day, you're exhausted, but you're also like starving.
Yes.
What's your go-to comfort meal?
Ooh, that's a dangerous question. Let's just say carbs are usually involved, maybe like a big bowl of pasta or something, equally as tempting.
I get it. We've all been there. But here's the thing, that late night carb fest, while delicious, it might be sabotaging your sleep.
Wait, seriously. My comforting bowl of pasta is betraying me. How so?
Well, think about it. When you eat a big meal, right?
Right.
Close to bedtime.
Yeah.
You're essentially telling your body to kick its digestive system into like high gear right when it should be winding down for sleep.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like asking your body to like run a marathon while it's trying to like fall asleep.
Exactly.
Not exactly a recipe for restful slumber.
Not at all. And it's not just about digestion.
Oh,
remember how we talked about like blood sugar spikes?
Yes.
And that like second wind we get after like a late night snack?
Oh, yes. That's when I like convince myself that I can totally stay up another hour or two, even though like 5 minutes ago I was ready to like pass out.
Exactly. Those blood sugar spikes, they can interfere with the smooth release of melatonin.
Oh, no.
Our sleep hormone,
Right.
making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep.
So not only is like my digestive system working overtime, but my brain is also getting like all these mixed signals about when it's like actually time to shut down.
You got it. You got it. And to make matters worse, imagine that while, you're digesting your dinner, you're also being bathed in the blue light of
Yes.
your phone or your TV.
I know, I know. The blue light, the ultimate sleep saboteur.
It really is. It really is. That blue light, it tricks your brain into thinking that it's still daytime,
Right.
suppressing melatonin production even further. So even though you might be like physically exhausted, your brain is still like wired and alert.
Oh.
Thanks to all that late night technology use.
This is all starting to feel very familiar.
Yeah.
It's like the perfect storm of bad sleep hygiene habits. What about those nights when you do manage to fall asleep, but then it's like 2 in the morning, and suddenly you're wide awake and your mind just won't shut off?
Yes. Yes, the dreaded middle of the night mind races, stress, anxiety, those lingering to-dos. Yeah, they can definitely make it hard to fall back asleep. The key here, I think, is to find ways to kind of like calm your mind before you even like get into bed.
Easier said than done, though.
It definitely takes effort. It definitely takes effort. But even small changes to our pre-sleep routine,
Right.
They can make a big difference. Instead of scrolling through your phone, try reading a book or taking a warm bath or practicing some gentle stretches or something like that.
So it's about creating a buffer zone between like the busyness of our day and the time that we want to like dedicate to sleep, almost like a mental decompression chamber.
I love that analogy. It's about, signaling to our bodies and our minds that it's time to transition from like go mode to like rest and restore mode.
I love that. This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like we've covered so much ground today.
Yeah.
Like from, decision fatigue and caffeine strategies to the importance of aligning with our chronotypes and creating like a sleep conducive environment.
It all comes down to like understanding how these different factors work together.
It really does.
To impact our energy levels.
So for our listeners who are feeling, maybe a little bit overwhelmed, but also like inspired to kind of reclaim their energy, what's like the one key takeaway that we want them to remember from all of this?
If I had to like choose just one, it would be this. Listen to your body.
I love it.
We are not all wired the same way. Pay attention to your natural energy peaks and dips throughout the day. Right. Experiment with your caffeine intake, your sleep schedule, your pre-sleep routine to find, what works best for you.
I love that. It's about becoming like the CEO of our own energy levels.
Yes.
Not just blindly following like generic advice.
Exactly.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. Knowing what you know now, what's one small change you can make today to kind of start reclaiming your energy? It could be as simple as, trying a coffee nap or maybe shifting your work schedule, by an hour to better align with your chronotype or swapping that late night screen time for like a relaxing book. Every journey begins with a single step, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Small changes can lead to really big results when it comes to feeling our best.
Couldn't agree more. Until next time, happy energizing.